Hi, I've got a wounded Volcano EPX truck from Redcat Racing to take care of today. In this case, the vehicle has a broken rear hub carrier. It's the left rear hub carrier, and the hub carrier, in this case, we see it's got two pieces here. Top part broke off. The hub carrier is the part that connects it secures the axle onto your rear suspension arm here. So it hooks between the axle and the wheel. This part can, it's not an unusual part to break on an RC vehicle. So fortunately, it's not too hard to fix. So let's see how this is all going to go together. I've taken it apart already because it's easier to talk about this when the vehicle's taken apart and talk about putting it back together. You got a dog bone. It's going to fit into your axle. There's only one way it can go, and this is your linkage. This is actually the part that's going to screw into the top of your rear hub carrier. So your dog bone is going to fit into your other end of your axle, okay? And this axle is going to fit through the hub carrier, which is going to be, oops, upside down. The hub carrier is going to be pinned into to secure it at the suspension arm, and then your wheel is going to fit on the outside, okay? The two basic tools that you need for this repair are you need to have a 2mm Allen wrench, and you also need to have a cross wrench. Okay. So let's see here. The reason I mentioned before, there's a pin. We already have a pin that runs through the lower end of the rear hub carrier, and then there's a small set screw, or a small set screw that screws into the bottom here. That's a 2mm screw. That's what you need the 2mm Allen wrench for. That secures this. The other thing that you need when you take this apart is that you need the bearings, because the old your existing hub carrier has a couple of these metal bearings. You have a larger one and you have a small one. You need to remove these and any pins when you take apart the hub carrier. When you get the replacement hub carrier, it's just a plastic piece or nylon piece that comes. You don't get the bearings with it unless you order that as a separate part. So you put the bearings on, and when you get the wheel axle together, again, to be careful when you're putting things, be careful taking apart to keep all of the pins. The axle does have a small pin that runs through it, right here. There's a pin, and then this pin is secured by a hex nut. So you put the hex nut over top here, okay? So that holds this in. Then your hex nut actually fits onto the inside of your wheel. So you put the hex nut and your axle in here, flip this over. There's a wheel nut that goes on the outside of your wheel, and you screw that in. So this is where you use the cross wrench, because you need the cross wrench to secure. The cross wrench will work on this. Cross wrench actually fits the hex nut if you need that, help get it off. It also will fit your wheel nut on the outside, okay? And again, when you order this part, if it's a Redcat Racing vehicle, the rear hub carrier, it's part 02013. There's also an aluminum hop-up for it if you want that. There are two, the hub carriers, you need it. It's a different part for the rear than the front. The rear runs 02013. They're also marked. There's an L or an R on them, so you can tell at a glance, if you don't know, which one would be on the left and which one would be on the right. In this case, we're on the left. So I'm going to pop the bearings in. Set our bearings back in. There we go. Okay. So we got a dog bone. Put this into the axle. Put our hub carrier over. Actually, you need to, and when you put the bearing in, you actually need to push it all the way in. As it turns out, the rear side of your cross wrench is just about wide enough that you could fit over your bearing and just kind of tap the cross wrench a little bit and punch it in. Okay. need to be sure that the bearings are, too, when they did, it should be recessed. There's a plastic lip inside. Be sure it's all the way in, and be sure the outer one is all the way in too, or you won't be able to fit this together. Okay, now we get the dog bone in. Got the axle. Put it through the hub carrier. Okay, so now the pin space for the pin is exposed. We push the pin through. Put the hex nut on. Yeah. I've got a pin. Push the pin through. Okay. Be careful, there's never a need to really force the pin. It should go in pretty easily. If you're having to force it, you're not doing something right, so just take it easy on it. There we go. 2. Now we're going to flip this over. So we flip this, I'm going to flip this over so we can get the set screws secured. So when you get the new parts, the replacement hub carriers, you do actually get a replacement set screw. There we go. Be sure to get the top piece screwed in. I got to put the wheel on. And once the wheel's on, we're ready to go.